Hello and welcome to the Parents Guide. This is where you'll find out what's going on in schools and hear some of the key issues being discussed from the parents' point of view. If you have school-aged children, this programme is for you. We'll be focusing on making progress in primary schools with two parents, Rashida Gaziz and Amanda Blinkhorn.
Hello. Hello.
We're also joined by education consultant Bill Davis, who has a great deal of experience in primary schools.
Hello.
We've been looking at some programmes from Teachers TV and we'll be showing some extracts during our discussion. These programmes were made for teachers, but they also open up a window for parents to look into classrooms and see what's going on in schools today. The first of our clips is about gifted and talented children. We go to Selwyn Primary School in East London and join a Year 6 mixed ability class as they discuss playing in the street.
The children that are wearing the hats at the moment are our G&T children who are basically trying to facilitate the discussion within the group and work with the group to try and get them to get the most out of them as possible. We've got the creative thinkers thinking of new ideas. We have just the facts table over there, coming up with all the different facts on that are involved.
When children play on the streets, they can break windows or they can break something.
We have our emotions table over here, thinking of the different feelings that are involved with children playing within the streets.
Yeah, we feel unsafe because we could get run over. I'm kidnapped. Yeah.
And over here we have our positive thinkers, looking at, I mean, there are definitely some positives to playing in the streets.
You can become more independent. Yeah, become more independent. Independent. I can't spell that. I know you can't. Right, next one.
And of course the negative side over here in the black patch.
Their ball will get lost and they'll start complaining.
I know. So they could get bullied because they don't have a garden to play in and they have to play outside on the street.
Amanda, what did you think of that lesson?
Yeah, it looked like they're actually enjoying themselves as well as compiling all this information. But and it is encouraging to see children who have got different abilities working together without it seeming too ranked or streamed. They seem to be working together. You know, there's often a lot of criticisms of state schools for saying, oh, but what about the more able children? They all have to dumb down. They have to keep quiet. They can't, they can't be noticed. And it's encouraging to see that that's not actually the case.
Did you feel that it would be clear how the gifted and talented children were chosen? Are you aware of that as a parent?
I'm not aware of it myself too much as a parent, but I'm sure the kids have no doubt whatsoever because their antennas are tuned to that sort of thing, and I don't think there's any way, really, however much you'd like to, that you can single children out and not expect everyone else in the class to be aware of it. I mean, I know they do things in different coloured tables or whatever, and the kids all immediately say, oh, they're cleverer than me and they're not so clever. They don't use those words. So, with the best will in the world, I don't think you can protect children from that kind of thing because they're too canny. Yeah.
Bill, do you think it's a helpful distinction, gifted and talented?
I do. I think that if we talk about children with additional needs, these children have additional needs in the sense that they have a gift, and that gift may be an academic ability or the ability to learn things quickly. Talented may be something completely different. It may be a skill or an interest in a sport or an artistic flair. And those children have the right to have their needs considered and catered for within the context of any school.
Do you think that it's helpful for the more able pupils to be helping the other ones to learn, Rashida?
Yes, I think we could use them, as facilitator in the classroom, but they shouldn't be aware of that. and but it can motivate, the rest of a group or the rest of the class just to try and reach, the same level as these children. I really think, it can be very useful.
Do you think the parents need to know if their children are in that group, or?
No, not necessarily, no. Just without saying, the things. I think the teacher is aware of which child, is talented or gifted, and she should do the differentiation, when she sets up the work. But she shouldn't say why, at least for young children.
Bill, do you think there's a danger that children in the middle do get left behind?
There could be, but schools should have in place systems to ensure that every child is considered, those children in the middle, that their progress is tracked, that they are set appropriate targets, and that they achieve their potential. And so it's essential that they consider those children in the same way as they would the more able, the gifted and the talented, and those perhaps who have special needs.
In the next programme, filmed at Bonner Primary School in East London, teaching and assessment go hand in hand. In the jargon, it's called personalised learning. We see it in practice here in Esther Clifton's reception class.
How do you draw it? Right. Think how to draw some trees. You know how to draw trees. It's his concentration and focus. Even just a hand or a look or a little encouraging word that will keep him on task. Right. That's the tree. Where are the branches with all the blossom and the flowers and all the flowers in the park? Okay, have a look. Did you draw the road underneath, Barbie? Very clever boy. Now, shall we write fire engine? Do you think we can? And you can go on top of Miss Clifton's writing. Are you ready? Say it for me. Look at me. Look at me. I want you to say fire engine.
Fire engine.
He doesn't know all the vocabulary and he has to be prompted a lot and also prompted to repeat. I do a lot of repeat after me. Are you ready to colour now?
I didn't see a squirrel.
I know. No, well, you weren't looking with your beady eyes.
It's brown.
You saw a squirrel and it was brown?
Yeah,
I'd love to hear that. Come on then. You can draw it in a minute. Come on, let's have a look at some more flowers. That amount of language coming from this boy is squirrel, and he's repeating after people. It's great.
Rashida, in the clip, the teacher was assessing the pupils as she went along and sort of adapting her teaching style to go with that. Is that what you would understand as personalised learning? Did you understand that from the clip?
No, I don't think, she can assess a child, just by sitting and asking to... there was not a quiet atmosphere anyway, so the concentration of the child was not 100%, so she can't assess him, on this case that we just saw now.
What would personalised learning mean to you then? What would you like to see if you heard that phrase used on your child?
I would think that my child would sit with the teacher only him and the teacher, in a room. So, like in a quiet atmosphere, so the child could have, a very good concentration about the activity. And this is when, she could realise, if he could do it or not.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? Because it's one of the sort of education buzzwords at the moment, personalised learning, which is supposed to mean a lot to parents. But obviously every parent may take a different meaning out of it. Would you see it working in a busy, slightly chaotic classroom?
Well, it has to, doesn't it? Because that's what you're going to have. There's only so many teachers and so many children. It reminds me of what the first time I looked through my son's nursery, I'd compared it to a small sort of working nursery for full daycare. And it seemed chaotic. And to start with, I thought, what are these kids doing? They're all running around, and, And then I just stayed there and watched and listened to the teachers, and it did come clearer that obviously they were keeping tabs on everyone. But you just have to realise that there are only so many teachers and so many kids.
Did you feel that, set aside your interpretation of personalised learning, that she was doing a good job there for those kids that were around her?
Oh, yes. I mean, I can't say that she's doing a bad job, because I'm sure she's got experience and she knows what she's doing. So I would trust her, but I'm just surprised about the way she's doing it.
I mean, Bill, this is one of these phrases that gets pushed out there into the ether. Everybody's supposed to understand what it means, but we've just seen for this cross-section of parents that two people take a different meaning out of it.
It means that the teacher engages with the child in an informal way, as she did with those children who were drawing, and that she is, her antennae are everywhere within that classroom, her eyes are everywhere, and she's listening to more than one conversation at the time, and she's engaging those children and assessing them as they speak and as they talk.
Is this anything new? Is this anything that teachers haven't been doing for years? And why then does it have to be presented as some big new idea when in fact it would be much easier for people to understand if you explained it as good teaching?
I think that we have such a vast range of needs in our schools now, and that every child does matter in each school, that it's important that teachers are aware of their responsibility and parents are aware that their child has the right to have personal experiences within the classroom which are focused upon their needs.
Well, let's go back to Bonner Primary School to see more personalised learning. In this clip, we begin to see how this approach allows pupils to develop and shine in years 4, 5 and 6.
It's important to be okay with learning, and I think it's quite important to try and like it. If you don't believe that, that means you just don't do it. And then when you get older, everybody will ask you to do stuff, and you say, I don't know how to do it. And then they'll just look at you. That's why it's really important to actually believe that you can actually learn.
The school is now giving children the opportunity to choose how they want to extend their learning.
There's textiles, drama, and there's gymnastics and all different things, and we can choose that.
For one afternoon a week, Tuesday afternoons, the children in years 4, 5 and 6 will be allowed to choose from a range of activities what they're going to learn over the course of 6 weeks.
She's writing some words, I'm doing Spot the Difference, we're doing all different kind of things for Bonner newspaper.
I have to do an interview with Mr. Tune and I got it recorded. I've got to write out the questions, then copy out the answers, and then I've got to type it on the computer.
Rashida, in that clip, the children were making their own decisions about how they might develop themselves, even though it was one afternoon. Do you think they're the appropriate people to be making those choices?
Well, yes, I think so. The opportunity to choose among, a certain number of activities, it's a good thing because, there was somebody saying that they chose this activity, so they're going to try, to make it work, and so the motivation is here, and because they're going to choose the activity when they're very good at, they're going to be full of confidence as well.
Amanda, do you think loosening up a bit on the prescriptive curriculum is a good idea in this way?
I think so, especially at primary school, like Rashida says, because they have so little freedom as kids. I think we forget how regimented their life is. They have no choice about where they're going to be Monday to Friday and what time they get there, not necessarily what they wear when they get there. And so, yeah, if they've got an afternoon within a very narrow framework to choose how they spend it.
Do you think it's beneficial across the board then? Do you think it can help motivation and self-esteem?
Well, it was there. You only had to listen to what they were saying. I couldn't believe they were so young and they were so self-aware.
So, Bill, would you say that bit more flexibility for kids to make their own decisions?
I think there's always been some flexibility in every classroom, actually. I think, but now I think there is a focus on enabling and empowering children to make decisions about their own learning, because teachers are informing them of their learning needs. We saw with the youngsters in that clip that they were engaged with a personal activity, but that personal activity was in fact contributing to the needs, their own personal needs, in skill and understanding and knowledge awareness.
And it was spread across several years in the school, so clearly Head was very behind it. But do you think heads and teachers need to be given a bit more confidence to innovate in that way? And do they have the confidence?
I think they do have the confidence, and I think that this will be part of the renaissance in education for the next 5 or 10 years, where there will be still the focus on basic skills, but a clear understanding that enjoyment has to be an integral part of learning, and that is a very personal experience.
Because there is a sort of sense in education that if you stick around long enough, the same ideas come back, and that was a very 60s and 70s idea of child-centred learning. Would you be happy to see the rigidity of the curriculum freed up a bit, Rashida?
Yes, I would say, they should, they could, let them choose, one afternoon per week, but not every day, because obviously they're not going to make, progresses in the other, subjects. So one afternoon of the week, or if they do like a special effort, we could tell them, oh, you reach your goal, so you can choose the next activity. It can boost them, it can motivate them as well.
Amanda, do you think the pendulum could go back a little bit further towards a bit more freedom, creativity, enjoyment? Not just having sort of one day a week, half a day a week, or one day a term for this sort of activity?
No, I feel my inner traditionalist coming out there, because I just think, no, because kids are kids, and if you give them the choice of what they'll do, they'll sit and watch Scooby-Doo. And so no, I don't.
OK, well, in our next clip, we turn our attention to what some people believe is the future of learning. It's from a programme called Brain-Based Approaches and features Charing School in Kent, where Anne Plummeridge is using mind maps with her Year 6 class.
I'm very impressed with the mind maps you've been doing. They're really very good at the moment. So what we're going to do now is you're going to tell me the information that you've got on your mind maps, and we're going to put them onto the class mind map at the front, and then that can be used when it's completed to put along with the display that we've already got to do with the geography work that we've been doing. OK, so who's going to start me off? Ashley.
Fit in with the surroundings.
It fits in with the surroundings.
Very often they'll use it as a class activity to start the theme, but they'll also use it on an individual level when they're doing story writing, for example, or a more creative piece of work to get them into the thinking process and the planning process.
I think my left side of my brain was used more because we didn't know about mind maps, and now it's helped me to use both.
It helps me order my work a lot better. Like if you're writing a story, you can put all your ideas down instead of putting it in a list and waiting till the end.
I like using a lot of colours, and if I use colours, it sticks in my brain.
Amanda, there were some quite complex ideas there. Did you understand what they were trying to do?
Kind of, yes. You get. It was quite complicated, but they seemed to understand it, which is the main thing. And I could see what they were getting at with just putting everything together and having a, well, like a map, so that you knew where you were going. And it did seem to help them get organised. And the way they were describing it showed that something was clicking.
Rashida, a lot of what we saw in that clip was dependent upon the children understanding and evaluating what they were doing. Do you feel they were old enough to really make those sort of decisions?
I think, if we found the right words to explain that to them without, talking about visual learning techniques or auditory or kinesthetic, they use it every day. If we use flashcards with a 4-year-old, we use visual and kinesthetic at the same time, but he doesn't know what it is, but he's still using it. So,
do you think as a parent, though, you'd want to know that these techniques were being used in the classroom?
Yes, I think it's very important, to be aware that, they know what they're doing, I'm sure, but that it's based, on research and that it's been proved. So we know where it comes from. Why do they use this technique instead of another one?
Bill, I mean, it looks like a very good... I mean, I've actually seen my children benefit from this in terms of revision and understanding complex subjects, but are we really to believe that it helps the way the brain works?
Yes, the evidence is there from a range of research projects across the globe that children have different learning styles, and that those learning styles should be taken into account. And indeed, teachers need to adopt a range of teaching styles to meet the needs of the children.
Rashida, so if your child came home and said, Mum, I did mind maps at school today, would you immediately want to know what that was so that you could help them with it at home or try and use the same techniques at home?
I think, when you open a book or when they explain how the body works or the different parts of the body, it's used, mind mapping. It's just, we don't know the technical word for it.
Yeah. Can I just ask Bill one last question? I mean, weird words. There are an awful lot of weird words for parents that come out of schools. Do parents need a sort of dictionary of jargon to help them navigate this system?
I don't think that we should be concerned with the jargon. What we should be concerned with is the practice and whether children are making progress and whether they can explain to you as parents how they're learning. How did you learn that? Is a good question. How do you know that? And that's one way forward.
Well, that's an interesting tip for us all to be going on with, but our last extract is about primary-secondary transfer. Let's hear from the Year 6 children at Hangleton Junior School, who have just visited their new secondary school, Hove Park.
But it was a bit weird going back to Hangleton after being at Hove Park.
In what way weird?
Like, you're used to... Now we've seen it, is you're used to a bigger school rather than a smaller school.
It does them good, it gives them confidence. But when they come back, they just don't want to be here anymore.
Never mind.
Never mind.
When we got back to Hangleton, I really wanted to go back to secondary school.
Josh won't have to wait long. Tonight is the Hangleton Leavers Disco.
Bow down. I'm going to miss Hangleton Junior School because of all my favourite teachers are here and all my friends, and I'm just going to leave them alone.
What are you most looking forward to?
Making new friends, getting new teachers.
What are you most looking forward to?
The new school.
And
Hove Park.
Both of us. And did you have a good day when you went to visit?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
So what are you most looking forward to when you get there?
Making new friends and meeting all our new teachers.
The majority of them we probably won't even notice because they'll just come and they'll fit in and everything will be great. For others it is more difficult for various reasons, emotional and social reasons. Some of them might be coming without any friends. If they come from a feeder school where there's only one or two, that can be quite traumatic, I think. Others come in when they've come in on appeal or they couldn't get into their first choice. That type of thing, I think you've got to look at them as individuals.
Amanda, you've just been through the secondary transfer process as a parent. What do you think the single thing is that can smooth it over for the child and for the parent?
I think not getting too worked up about it yourself, and wherever they go, making sure that they feel as if they will be welcomed when they get there and that it's their choice to be there. I think that the telling point that the teacher made there was that when children come from a place where they have few friends, then obviously that can be very traumatic, but also when they come to somewhere on appeal, when they haven't got their first choice. And I think that is so sad because they've got there on their first day and already they feel either as if they're a failure or as if they've got their second choice, and that is such a hard mountain to climb.
The friendship group is quite an important factor in moving forward.
I think all other things being equal, I think that's the most important thing, the fact that you go there feeling safe and among friends, and that it's an exciting thing to do, because as she said, that, you know, by year 6 they are ready for it, but they're also still little, and they're going from being top dog to being the little lost minnows again. So if they've got someone to go with and share it with and see them through those first few lunch hours, then they'll be fine.
Rashida, you've got much younger children, but was there anything in that film that reminded you of your own transfer to a secondary school?
Even if my child, you know, is still young, I just get ready, because we're never ready anyway. And I try to think about it, and I think what might help me is the induction day. But not for my child, for me. I might go with him, and just, you know, to have a representation of the school layout or the school routine or what is a typical day for him.
Amanda, do you worry that enough knowledge isn't passed over to the secondary school, and which of the approaches that we saw in the film would be the best way of ensuring that that does happen?
Well, I think the most valuable thing seems to be, although it probably doesn't take that much time apart from organising it, is this 15-minute interview where at least you have the face-to-face contact, and you can establish contact with the year tutor, and you can see how they interact with your son or daughter, and the tutor has a chance to talk to you. So I think there's an incredible amount of information gets passed on there, just in terms of seeing each other face to face, not necessarily written down.
It's a big concern, isn't it, to parents and schools about the
Yes.
drop-off in years 7 and 8 if children are doing well in primary school. Do you think we're doing enough to counter that?
I think that some schools are. I think some have got a long way to go in actually taking on board the information that they receive from primary schools and using it to best effect. But we're talking about huge groups of children. As you quite rightly said, they will inevitably be linked to a tutor, a form tutor. And I believe that, again, that individual should be the person that parents make themselves aware of, how to contact them, how they actually are available to parents and to the child. So I think that's very, very important. But I think that because there is such a huge shift and change in the learning experience, there will be some regression. It may only be a small amount, but inevitably I think that will happen.
OK, we have to end it there. You can have your say, though, by emailing parents@teachers.tv, and you can find all the information about programmes you have seen and more on our website at Teachers TV. Details at the end of this programme. Thanks to my guests, Amanda, Rashida and Bill.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
And from myself, Fiona Miller. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, goodbye.